Hello, in this presentation we shall see how to simplify exponents containing fractions. Let us take a simple example. Let's take a simple example. Let's look at an example which is of this form. 2 over 3, the whole thing is raised to the power of 3. In this case, we'll break it down into steps. Step number 1. We want to recognize what the base term here is, and we want to recognize what the exponential term here is. The base term here happens to be a fraction, and the exponential term here is 3. So that is step number 1. In step number 2, we're going to apply the concept, and the concept is telling us that the base term needs to be repeated the number of times the exponential term is indicating to us. Therefore, 2 over 3 raised to the power of 3 can be expanded as follows. 2 over 3, the fraction, the base term, will be repeated 3 times. 2 over 3 times 2 over 3 times 2 over 3. We multiply the numerator parts. We multiply the denominator parts. 2 times 2 times 2 divided by 3 times 3 times 3. So therefore, we can simplify this. We can take two numbers at a time, or if we know our 2 times table, we can multiply it out. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8 divided by, and the denominator, on the denominator we have 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. So therefore, 2 over 3 raised to the power of 3 is equal to 8 over 27. Let's look at another example. Let's say we have another example of this kind. Example. Let's say we have the base term now has a negative sign, and that is raised to the power of 3. We will follow the same type of steps we followed in the previous example. Step number 1. We want to recognize the base terms, then we want to recognize the exponential term. The base term here is negative 2 over 3. Since the negative sign is inside the parenthesis, the negative sign becomes the part of the base term, and the exponential term is 3. In step number 2, we're going to recall the concept and apply it here. The concept is telling us the number of times the base term needs to be repeated is indicated to us in the exponential term. Therefore, negative 2 over 3 is, when it is raised to the power of 3, we're going to repeat the base term 3 times. Negative 2 over 3 is repeated 3 times like this. Negative 2 over 3 times negative 2 over 3. And now it is just a matter of multiplying the numerators, multiplying the denominators. But in this case, we have to take care of the negative signs. Negative times negative, if we take the first 2 terms as a group, negative times negative is a positive, 2 times 2 is 4, and then 3 times 3 is 9. So that is the first part of that. And then we need to then multiply by negative 2 over 3, which is remaining there. So then we're going to then come back and then multiply the signs. Positive times negative is a negative. Then we multiply the numerators. 4 times 2 is 8 divided by 9 times 3 is 27. 9 times 3 is 27. And therefore, when we have an exponent like this, negative 2 over 3, which is raised to the power of 3, the answer is going to be equal to negative 8 over 27. Negative 8 over 27. So when we have exponents in fraction format, this is how we're going to apply the concept and then be able to arrive at this answer. Let's look at another example. Let's look at another simple example. Okay. In this time, let's say we put the negative sign outside of the parentheses. Let's say we have 2 over 3. This whole thing is raised to the power of 3. Again, we're going to apply the steps as we have done in these two previous examples. Step number 1, we want to recognize the base term and we want to recognize the exponential term. We want to make sure now that the negative sign is outside of the parentheses, and therefore it will be not part of the base term. So therefore the base term here is 2 over 3 and the exponential term here is 3. So in step number 2, we're going to apply the concept. What is the concept? The concept is telling us that the number of times the base term needs to be repeated is indicated in the exponential term, and therefore we keep the negative sign outside and then repeat 2 over 3, or the fraction 2 over 3 three times. 2 over 3 times 2 over 3 times 2 over 3, just like that. And now we're going to simplify the math. We keep the negative sign outside. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, divided by 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 3 is 27. And therefore, negative of 2 over 3, the whole thing raised to the power of 3, is equal to 8 over 27. So therefore, in this example, what we have seen is, we have seen a couple of different examples related to fractions. When we had no negative sign for the base term, when the negative sign was a part of the base term, and when the negative sign was outside of the parentheses, we have seen these different conditions. We will apply what we have done is we have broken it down into these different steps. In step number 1, we have identified what the base term is, what the exponential term is, and in step number 2, we applied the concept, and then we were able to simplify the math, and then we're able to arrive at an answer. In my next presentation, we shall see how to simplify exponents containing multiple fractions.